Hey everybody, XRP will dethrone Ethereum as the top altcoin in 2025. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover it thoroughly, and you're at the end of this video, you're going to be like, wow, man. And if you're into XRP, you're going to be in even deeper. So we're going to cover that here in just a few minutes. Real quick, let's go ahead and cover the decent wallet that helps both channels. We'll be right back.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
All right. Thanks for spending those few seconds with us. We appreciate everything you guys do for our channels. Max, we're going to flip Ethereum.
Absolutely, we're going to flip Ethereum. I think it is absolutely inevitable. I know that we've stated this also with Stellar, but we're going to talk, of course, about Ripple XRP. So what do we have in that regard? Well, again, shout out to one of the best in the business, our brother in the community, Smoke. And basically, let's share with you what he has. As you can see right here, from basically X, you see here specifically, I should say, this. XRP will dethrone Ethereum as the top altcoin in 2025, hence the title of this particular video. As we full screen this, some of the meat and potatoes of what we want to put emphasis on. Ethereum's decade-long grip on the altcoin market cracking under the weight of its own inefficiencies. Is it more than just the whole thing of gas fees? Well, seems as though that's the case. But in the highlight, in bold, Smoke points out scalability failures, outrageous gas fees, and stalled upgrades are pushing users and developers, of course, to exit. We've seen some of these examples. Some people say XDC is a great example of that. How many developers have come over from Ethereum to XDC? But again, what about Ripple XRP? So Ethereum can't scale fast enough to meet the rise in demand. We know about how Ripple is faster and cheaper and so on, but whatever the case be, would XRP really take the crown from Ethereum? Well, I think we need to mention more things than just speed and scalability. I like this part. Lower fees, carbon neutrality, and institutional migration away from Ethereum. This quote, we have now started to shift from using the Ethereum blockchain to the XRP ledger. We will have faster payments globally with reduced fees to the investor in the blockchain is carbon neutral. I know some of you guys aren't the biggest fan of these terminology, but it is what it is. It's research. Don't shoot the messenger. But look at this other thing. Ethereum's DeFi layer is inefficient and, of course, outdated. Most automated market makers operate on the Ethereum blockchain and face challenges such as high transaction fees, significant slippage, and impermanent loss risk. Wow. Ethereum was the first mover, but XRP is the better mover. Now, before we kick it over to Will, there is some other highlights that Smoke has for us. So let's jump into this for a moment. This right here says specifically Ethereum will be dethroned as the biggest altcoin. Ethereum's decade-long dominance in the altcoin market will be seriously threatened for the first time in 2025. Yes, this year, 2025. High transaction costs, scalability, of course, will cause a rise of competition in regard to institutional and retail users to use alternative networks. Well, he has a little bit more, says this, and I'll pull this up on the other screen and make it a little bit bigger for you. It says specifically, too early to pick winners and, of course, losers. Smoke mentions that Ethereum smart contract enabled platform provided with first mover advantage as developers building applications gravitated to it, which led to network effects as its ecosystem of decentralized applications and the number of users leverage these particular applications. So before we kick into the last part of what Smoke has, Will, the way I look at it is I think there's something here. And the way I also
Yeah.
look at it is is time inevitable for 2025 and especially for Ripple XRP? Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. When I think of Ethereum, I think, we used it because it's what we had. Ethereum, it was available. But I mean, if this has ever happened to you, put in the comments, yeah, brother. Have you ever wanted to move a coin and then suddenly you didn't have enough Ethereum? So now you're scrambling to buy Ethereum and you feel like you're under pressure because you're wanting to make this move. And, especially if it has time value and they were talking about slippage, I've had this happen. This is so aggravating because the Ethereum network wants you to have the Ethereum and won't take it all the time from the asset that you're moving that's an ERC20 token. Whereas when you trade with XRP, it'll just remove it from the XRP that's in the transaction. And so if say, yeah, brother, if you've ever been just tied up where then suddenly you're getting like 30, 40, $50 to move some Ethereum. And then it's more if the time of the day is bad. So what's happened is the undercurrent's been building where everybody's aggravated with Ethereum, but it's what we had. And all these coins that we use and all of the things that Ethereum carries, which has a vast array of stuff. It's fantastic in that respect in what it offers, but in the costs and then the efficiency of it isn't really where it's up to be. So the undercurrent's been building that if there was another alternative, people would move in a second because they don't like that aggravation. As soon as it's an Ethereum product, for me, I get aggravated. I'm like, oh crap, this is gonna cost me 20, 30, $40. I'm gonna have to buy Ethereum. That's not always convenient, depending on like, I got several different places that I have coin and where all of us do. And then sometimes you're not set up in one area to just go ahead and draft from your card because that one doesn't get it. So then you end up having to go to, one account where you can buy the Ethereum. Then you got to pay to transfer it to the account that you need the Ethereum in. And so you're paying that fee just so you can pay the fee to move the other coin to where it needs to go. So what's been building underneath, this undercurrent that's been building is people don't like Ethereum. So because of those reasons, they don't like that process. Ethereum's fine, but they don't like to go through that process. So when you can think of if Ethereum eliminated that process, Ethereum would be super strong. If it was real efficient and cheap, it wouldn't go anywhere, in my opinion. But now that there's an alternative, people are going to switch as soon as they can. So man, like on my channel, I do the ACDC. I agree and concur with Smoke on this, man. This has been building for a while. And then what do we see right now? Man, we see several coins recovering, sweeping up and sweeping down is sluggish in this process. So man, it just totally looks like this is going to get flipped and XRP is going to be number two. And think of all of that money if it takes root and becomes just an open idea. That's a ton of money is going to just be torn right out of Ethereum and come into XRP, XRPL networks.
Something I want to talk about with you briefly is this. So we know about the scale and efficiency will when it comes to specifically our Ripple XRPs, and some of these other ones are significantly faster than, of course, Ethereum. But the debate lately, especially when it comes to other projects outside of XRP, your quants, your stellars, your XDCs, and so on, people will point out, for example, hey, you know what? It seems as though the institutions clearly went with a sense of security with Ethereum because it was battle tested. That narrative of being battle tested, tried and tested, and multiple pilots and so on. My thing is this: next step forward, well, the taste moving forward is we do have a sense of clarity. Now it seems as though August is going to come up for the United States. I think we do get the executive order from Trump to move forward with this. regulations, and so on. But whatever the case be, if you have these other technologies that are more efficient, then it tells me, well, now you can't use that excuse of we're going with the slower tech because it's more secure. If anything, XRP is secure, Stellar is secure. So back to what you were saying earlier, you would have this shift. I know you didn't say shift, but it does seem to be a radical shift because it's out with the old and in, of course, with the new. Which brings us to this next part. You guys have pointed out numerous times that XRP doesn't have the functional smart contracts of a Stellar. Well, yes and no. What does Smoke have to mention in that regard? Well, let's pull this up because, again, it gets a little interesting with what he has in the research. Smoke points this out. He's ahead of everybody. In his research, he specifically mentions this: XRP and smart contracts. Yes, Ripple has it. It says escrow, like you see right here, is designed as a feature to enable XRP ledger. If anything, we'll pull it up on the other screen. It says specifically to be used in the interledger protocol. How many times have we talked about that over the course of a few years? And with other smart contracts, the current version has a modest scope to avoid complexity. Escrow only works with XRP, not tokens. So it's interesting to see this, and some people are stating that it doesn't exist. Before we wrap this up, Will, I do want to get your thoughts on this whole thing of XRP, because if we talk about Stellar with Sorbonne, shouldn't XRP get a little reference here, especially with Smoke's example about, for example, escrow?
Yeah, it looks like XRP has a way to do what it needs to do. I don't think that's going to be a barrier at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a barrier either, but whatever the case be, people do point out some of these things. So, if
True.
anything, yeah, the way I look at it is it's kind of like this, and I think we could apply this to Stellar as well, Will. So,
I have an
XRP,
extra thought.
yeah, go ahead.
We had talked about this months ago, um, talking about Quant Network. Quant is able to use another network other than Ethereum. And wasn't there some mention about the ability to switch from the Ethereum network to a whole nother network and keep everything perfectly intact with Quant?
Yes, that is true. They can switch to XRP Ledger. They can switch to XDC. They technically have support for just about anything and everything. But of course, the current complaint has always been, yeah, QNT is technically an ERC20 token. I look at it from the perspective of you don't understand the bigger picture. And I say that politely because Bank of England, the BIS, and so on, well, they look at least for the time being, in those specific areas of the world, we value security over speed and efficiency for the time being. Until what? Until we get clarity and regulations. I think when that's set in stone, you will see that shift of, yeah, you know what? We're totally not going to go with this. Does that mean Quant switches? I'm not ready to state that yet, but I think if anything, Gilbert Verdian, a very smart man, he's going to recognize that. He might decide, yeah, we're going to fully get off of this whole thing of QNT and ERC20, but we'll have to see how it pans out, to say the least. But your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's worth bringing up because if people start abandoning ship, there's a lot of very valuable tokens over there they're not going to want to abandon. So I don't think Ethereum's going to go away. But as people can move, they probably will. And then, it's interesting. XRP has um, the ability to run Ethereum with the virtual machine, right? The virtual Ethereum. So think of how dangerous that is. If you're Ethereum right now, you're going, wow, XRP can run our stuff, man.
Yeah, and things, of course, like Axelar will definitely stand out in that regard because
Yes.
they seem to be the solution for Ripple, especially when it
It's
comes to
like a
that
mini quant.
yeah, like interoperability and so on. So EVM side chains, there's so many. Oh my gosh, there's countless ones out there. But what ones would really stand out for Ripple? I think Axelar takes the cake in that regard, especially since we know about the dealings they have. But hey, guys, we just want to share this with you, give you some perspective. And in closing, I want to state this. So we know that Ripple XRP has smart contracts. Awesome. Stellar has smart contracts. Let's talk about both of them for just a brief moment before we actually wrap it up for good. I look at it this way. Ethereum has ETH. That's the native coin of ETH. Ethereum, excuse me. Then there's ERC20 smart contracts. Moving forward, would you see something like XRP, the native coin? And then, of course, you would see, for example, the smart contract functionality. Would it be called, I don't know, XRP20? I'm just throwing that example out there. Maybe there already currently is. There's so many abbreviations, right? Not perfect. But we do know with Stellar, native coin, XLM. All right. Would it be called XLM20 or X20? So that's Sorbonne. And we know that when it comes to Sorbonne, some of these things are really going to be built out on that ecosystem. Again, regulations should enable these ecosystems to thrive. So, do we include Stellar to also dethrone Ethereum, or will XRP take the cake? That's up to you guys to decide. Do us a favor if you listen to this entire outline and simply type this into the comments, and that is dethroned, and we'll know that you listen to the entire outline. So glad to be back with my brother in Christ, Will Fix. Will, looking
I
forward to
love
do
you, buddy.
more.
I appreciate you, Max.
And when we say we love each other, it's not what you think. I love this man like a brother,
We're
my
brothers,
brother in
man. We're
Christ, man.
brothers.
If you
Yeah,
love your brother, you're gonna tell your brother you love him, and that's
that's
the way I
right.
look at it. So, boom. Glad to be back with Will. We'll see you on the next one.